In the plush isolation booth, Jenna felt a mix of gratitude and apprehension. She dabbed at her mascara-stained cheeks with a tissue, aware of the intense gaze of the man beside her. She stole a glance at Blake Sterling, the enigmatic lead singer of Midnight Echo. His usual devil-may-care attitude seemed replaced by a focused intensity. Unlike the boisterous rock star who commanded thousands of screaming fans just moments ago, now there was just a man, albeit one with tousled dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within their depths. "Thank you for helping me," she finally said, her voice hoarse from crying and the shock of it all. "I never meant to intrude. I just couldn't control myself." Blake turned to her, his brow furrowed with concern. "It's all right," he reassured her, reaching out to gently tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "You needed help. I wasn't going to let that jerk hurt you more." At the mention of Ryan, a fresh wave of tears threatened to spill over. Jenna shook her head, forcing herself to calm down. She knew she had to be strong, not only for herself, but for her 6-year-old daughter Lily, who was blissfully unaware of her parents' failing marriage. Blake sensed her internal struggle and withdrew his hand quickly, as if scalded. He turned away, averting his gaze to the bustling activity outside the booth. "So, what are you gonna do now?" he asked, breaking the silence. Jenna pondered his question. She couldn't stay in that toxic relationship any longer, but the thought of facing the world alone, of raising Lily on her own, filled her with dread. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. "I guess I need to figure things out." Blake understood her predicament. He'd seen enough failed relationships and broken families to recognize the turmoil within her. His parents' bitter divorce when he was young had left deep scars, shaping him into the guarded, self-reliant man he was today. As if sensing his brooding, the studio door opened and a bubbly blonde emerged. "Blake, darling, we're ready for you," she said, with a saccharine, sweet smile. "Victoria, this is Jenna. She needs some help," Blake said, turning back to Jenna. I gotta go. My manager," he winced at the word manager. "She means well, but sometimes she gets carried away." Before Jenna could respond, Victoria was upon them, her eyes widening in surprise. "Blake, what are you doing here? And who is this?" she asked, her gaze shifting between them. Blake took a deep breath, bracing himself for Victoria's inevitable reaction. "I found her backstage crying. I thought I should help her." Victoria's eyes narrowed, scrutinizing Jenna from head to toe. "And what exactly do you need help with, young lady?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Jenna, taken aback by the woman's hostile demeanor, hesitated before answering. I need a place to stay, maybe some advice on what to do next. About my husband, he was supposed to meet us here after the concert, but..." She trailed off, unable to articulate the turmoil within her. Victoria's expression softened slightly, perhaps recognizing the raw vulnerability in Jenna's voice. "Blake," she said, turning to her charge, "why don't you go freshen up? We'll sort things out here." Blake nodded silently, escaping to the sanctuary of his dressing room. Inside the dressing room, Blake poured himself a shot of whiskey, the burn familiar and comforting. As he stared at his reflection, he grappled with the turmoil within him. How could he help Jenna? The thought of her and her daughter facing the world alone, battling the demons of an abusive marriage, ignited a protective fire within him. He wasn't known for his charitable endeavors, but something about Jenna's quiet strength resonated with him. Was it pity or something deeper that tugged at his soul? He wasn't sure. What he did know was that he couldn't stand idly by while she struggled. Meanwhile, Jenna sat in the plush chair provided for Blake, feeling acutely aware of Victoria's intense scrutiny. She knew she had to convince this formidable woman to help her, to offer her more than just a night's lodging. Victoria studied her intently, no doubt assessing whether she was a gold digger or some overzealous fan. Finally, Victoria spoke, her voice softening slightly. All right, Jenna, I see you're not the type to pan for gold, but you need to understand I can only do so much. My priority is Blake and his well-being. If this interferes with that, I'm afraid I can't assist. Jenna nodded, understanding the constraints of this high-stakes game. Of course, but I assure you, I only want what's best for him. I'm not here to cause trouble. Victoria eyed her for a moment longer before relenting. Very well. You can stay here tonight. Blake will decide what happens next. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend to. With that, Victoria exited, leaving Jenna alone with her thoughts. As the night deepened, Jenna found herself pacing the confines of Blake's dressing room. She couldn't help but wonder about the man. What kind of person allowed his manager to dictate every aspect of his life? What had driven him to pour his soul into music only to have it become a product for sale? A knock on the door startled her, and when she turned, she found Blake framed in the opening. He looked different without the stage makeup, his rugged features accentuated by the dim lighting. "You didn't answer my question," he said softly, taking a hesitant step closer. "What happened with your husband?" Jenna met his gaze, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's over," she whispered, the finality of the words echoing in the small room. "He cheated on me with one of his co-workers. I found them together backstage." Blake's jaw tightened, his protective instincts flaring. He wanted to reach out, to pull her into a comforting embrace, but he held back. Their connection was undeniable, but he was wary. What if his feelings were clouding his judgment? Jenna continued, her voice gaining strength. "We've been having problems for a while now. Ryan works long hours, and lately he's been distant, cold. I thought maybe if I surprised him with these tickets it would help. God, I was wrong." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "I'm scared, Blake. I'm scared of being alone, of not being able to give Lily the life she deserves." Blake saw the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear that mirrored his own. In that moment, he knew he couldn't turn away. Reaching out, he gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away a stray tear. "You won't be alone," he murmured, his voice husky with emotion. "I may not be the best at relationships, but I promise I won't let Lily down." His thumb brushed her lower lip, and she felt a jolt shoot through her body. Despite the danger it represented, she couldn't resist the urge to lean into his touch. For a moment, their lips were inches apart, the air between them crackling with unspoken tension. Then, as if jolted by his own audacity, Blake pulled away. His eyes, usually so confident and assured, now held a flicker of uncertainty. I shouldn't," he stammered, turning away to hide the turmoil within him. Jenna watched him, her heart aching at the conflicted emotions she saw reflected in his tense shoulders, in the clenched jaw that betrayed his inner turmoil. Suddenly, a burst of energy seemed to course through him, shaking off his earlier hesitation. He turned back, his eyes blazing with renewed determination. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand. "I'll show you where I'm going next. We can sort everything out on the road." Jenna hesitated, torn between the familiar comfort of her old life and the exhilarating uncertainty of the path Blake offered. As she looked into his eyes, she saw not only passion and determination, but a kindness and vulnerability that mirrored her own. Could she trust him? Could she risk it all on a chance encounter backstage at a rock concert? The answer, she knew, lay not in the safety of familiarity, but in the uncharted territories of her heart. The following day, Blake took Jenna out for lunch, surprising her by not only remembering her favorite food, but also having a personal connection to the restaurant. It was owned by one of his oldest friends, who greeted him like a long-lost brother. At first, Jenna felt like an intruder, Blake's unusual attachment to her bringing unwanted attention. But as she got to know his circle, she realized Blake's loyalty and affection weren't rare for anyone. His manager, Lily, a no-nonsense woman who could probably bench press Blake, greeted Jenna with a hug. "You're the girl who took care of Blake, right? We all owe you one. He hasn't slept that well in years." Even Blake's personal chef, Marcus, a culinary genius who could whip up five-star meals with groceries from a corner store, seemed genuinely happy to have Jenna around. "You look tired, love. You need some vitamins," Marcus said, placing a smoothie in front of Jenna. She blushed at his kind eyes and gentle tone. Everyone treated Blake like family, and slowly, Jenna found herself accepted, even welcomed into this unconventional group. They talked about music, life, and everything in between. Blake's humor was dry and self-deprecating, surprising Jenna, who had imagined him as the typical pampered pop star. She discovered a man with a sharp intellect, quoting obscure philosophers, debating politics, and surprising her with his knowledge of 80s horror movies. When the subject shifted to his upcoming album, Jenna found a different side of Blake. His eyes would lose focus, his fingers drumming a restless beat on the table. "It feels like my soul is being sold piece by piece," he confided in her, his usual playfulness gone. "I can't connect with any of these writers. They don't understand me." Jenna reached out, her touch sending a jolt through him. "Maybe you just haven't found the right one," she suggested tentatively. Blake shook his head, a wry smile returning. "The only thing we have in common is skin cancer." He gestured to the open notebook in front of him, filled with half-written lyrics. "I'm stuck, Jenna. These songs aren't bad, but they're not Blake. They're what the label wants from me, safe, generic." Jenna leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. "Don't sell yourself short. You have a gift, Blake. It may not be in this notebook, but it's inside you. I believe you can write songs that will touch the world." Her words echoed in his mind long after she left that night. As he lay in bed beside Ryan, the weight of his thoughts pressing down on him, he knew Jenna was right. But where did he start when everything felt broken? The next morning, Jenna woke up in Blake's guest room to the faint sound of piano chords. Drawn by the melody, she wandered into the living room where Blake sat bathed in the golden light of the rising sun. He looked up as she entered, a hesitant smile gracing his lips. "Didn't mean to wake you," he murmured, his fingers hovering over the ivory keys. "What are you doing?" Jenna asked, mesmerized by the raw emotion in his music. "Writing," Blake replied softly, his gaze fixed on the cityscape beyond the window. Jenna hesitated, then walked towards him, the unspoken question hanging in the air. "Can I?" Blake looked up, meeting her gaze. "Of course." He rose from the bench, offering her his seat. As Jenna sat down, Blake began to play. The notes danced around her, weaving a tapestry of sound that stirred something deep within her soul. It was unlike any song she'd heard before, both haunting and hopeful. When the last chord faded away, Jenna was left breathless, tears threatening to spill. "That was," she whispered, searching for the right words. "Beautiful." Blake nodded, his eyes distant. "It's nothing compared to what I want to create, but it's a start." He stood up, stretching. "I have an early meeting, but I'll be back tonight. Please, if anything comes to mind, write it down. Maybe a title, a phrase, anything." Jenna watched him leave, his words echoing in her thoughts. Anything. Could she offer him more than that? As the hours passed, Jenna found herself pacing Blake's apartment, his words echoing in her mind. Anything. She opened his notebook, the blank pages mocking her lack of inspiration. Suddenly she stopped. Anything. She run family business? Was that it? Did Blake feel trapped in his commitment to his record label, unable to break free and explore new sounds? Had he been holding on to this pain, unable to express it until now? With renewed purpose, Jenna picked up the pen and began to write. She didn't know if she was helping or hindering Blake, but she had to try. Blake returned home later that evening to find Jenna asleep on his couch, the notebook open on her lap. A surge of protectiveness washed over him. How had he not noticed how much she was giving to this, putting her own life on hold to help him? He gently woke her, and as her eyes fluttered open, he saw the sleep-mussed hair, the smudge of dirt on her cheek, the faint smile playing on her lips. In that moment, he knew he had found someone special. As the weeks passed, Jenna and Blake worked tirelessly on his new album. Jenna's knowledge of folk music and storytelling combined with Blake's pop sensibilities created a unique sound that surprised even them. Songs poured out of him, each note, each lyric dripping with emotion. Jenna became his sounding board, his confidant, his rock. They argued over tempos and lyrics, laughed over inside jokes, and supported each other through creative slumps. One rainy afternoon, Blake played Jenna a song he had finished that morning. It was a ballad, raw and honest, and it spoke of a love that had been lost and found. "This song," Blake said, his voice hoarse, "this is for you." Tears welled up in Jenna's eyes as the final note faded away. "Blake, it's beautiful. But why?" "Because you're the best friend, the most selfless person I know. I may have found my muse, Jenna, but I couldn't have done it without you." His words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Then, as if realizing what he had said, his eyes widened. "Oh, God, I didn't mean to—" "Shh," Jenna cut him off, her heart pounding in her chest. She had hoped Blake wouldn't notice her feelings, but maybe it was impossible to hide such a big secret. Taking a deep breath, she forced a smile. "Let's finish this album, huh?" Blake nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, let's work." They spent the next few days in a flurry of activity, completing the album. As the final touches were added, Jenna knew their time together was running out. The pending divorce proceedings meant she had to return to her own life, to her own problems. Saying goodbye to Blake would be the hardest thing she's ever done.